Sadal, health and well-being coach, and welcome to Getting Healthy Without Rules. This show is about understanding your wellness and the things that impact it and finding ways to improve it. This show supports a non-diet, no-rule approach to health and wellness. Health and wellness is a moving target, and we all have different needs and opportunities to improve it. It allows you to make the best choice with the information that you have right now. It allows you to be present, flexible, and resilient. In addition, I support you in shifting from judgment to curiosity and offering yourself self-compassion. It is time that we are all a little bit kinder to ourselves. As we regularly point out in this show, many things impact our wellness, and most of them are interconnected. Many of us don't think about ageism until one day, here we are, getting older. But ageism deserves our attention because it is more pervasive and harmful than most of us recognize. In today's episode, we're going to explore ageism, what it is, who is affected, how it impacts our wellness, and where ageist thinking comes from, and why we have thoughts that we have, and where do our own thoughts come from. Be sure to stay to the end for this week's healthy practice. I am excited to introduce today's expert guest, Caryl Mix. Caryl is a life and business growth strategist and the founder of This One Life podcast. She enables high-achieving women entrepreneurs and busy professionals to build a business that excites them and a lifestyle they love. She works side by side to design and implement systems and strategies that help them streamline and scale their businesses and integrate balance and harmony into all areas of their life. Caryl, welcome back to our show. So I have to say, Caryl was my very first guest, and I'm super excited to have you back and talk about today's topic.
I am excited to be here. Thank you so much.
So today's topic comes from a recent image that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated that has created a lot of conversation and controversy about how women are portrayed and beauty standards. It has prompted Caryl and I to unpack thoughts such images instill in us and where they come from. So it's time for us to dive in. We're going to start with, what is ageism?
I think it's the way we feel, it's the way we think, we feel, and we act towards others and ourselves in regards to age.
How do you think it manifests in our society?
A big, giant narrative. It is big.
There is, like, the World Health Organization has their definition. Today, I think we're talking more about how it impacts women and our self-image and what we're seeing. So how do you think it fits in there?
You know, it's something that, whether it's modeled for us, something that we have with the people that are around us, mentors, parents, people, teachers, whoever, and then all the way through what we have seen and experienced through society and then through our peers. So there's so many angles of it. And I think that that's what had brought some of our conversation almost to a head, is how long we have been facing all of these ideas of what ideal should be for us and how young it starts and then all the way through. And now here we are with ageism as a topic.
And how do you think ageism affects our mental, social, and physical health?
Massive impact with limitations, if we allow it to, if we're looking through that lens, right? It's our own holdbacks. It's our own thoughts that can hold us back. Oh, I can't do that. Or when somebody says, oh, at your age, you're doing that? Oh, I started roller skating a couple of years ago. At your age, you roller skate? Yes, I do.
And perspective is so interesting. I'm 57, not young, not exactly old.
Yeah.
And I have friends that are starting to retire, and I feel like I'm just getting started. I mean, I'm deep into what I do, but I'm also just getting started. And I have to constantly think to myself, I can't let my age dictate my hopes and dreams of where I want to go with what I do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And it is, I think it's really paying mind to how we're practicing what we're thinking about it. Even to how do we get dressed? I don't know for you, like going shopping for clothing now. Where am I supposed to shop? It's just this in-between state. I'm 51. So again, it's, Mom, you're wearing that, and then I'm like, yes, I'm wearing this. And then should I be wearing this?
So it's an interesting question. And one of my last or recent guests, I had Christine Bogosian from Empower Your Sass. And we were talking all about, what is appropriate, what's inappropriate. It's time to get rid of the rules. And it is about, how do you feel? How do you want to show up? What's going to matter to you? So that, if you are listening, you can wear whatever you want. It's time to let that mantra of somebody else's opinion dictate what you are allowed to do or not to do.
Yep. I think that applies here too.
Yeah, for sure. What are the common misconceptions about aging?
Again, the limitations. Once I stepped into the roller skating world with my granddaughter and my daughter-in-law, now we have gone up to the next level of private lessons with a 70-year-old roller skating teacher who has an almost 80-year-old competitive student. And when I met her, it was almost like I met a rock star. There she was. She showed up in the class. This woman was so graceful, so amazing. And again, I didn't want to say, wow, you're 80 and you're doing this. But no, she's 80 and she's doing this. I get to see this. So these misconceptions that we shouldn't be doing these things, or we can't do that because of this age, or I'm too old for that, I don't want to do that. The stories that I tell myself, that's what I'm paying attention to at this point now, and looking for examples out in the world of who's doing what I still want to do.
And that's such that's a great perspective, in that when you align yourself with seeing the things that are capable out there, it begins to change the narrative of the stories of we can or we can't, or we should or we shouldn't.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of opinions how people look, including ourselves as we age. How often have you heard someone quietly whisper, or you may have been the whisperer, do you think she's had work done? Why does it matter to us?
I think that it matters to us because of the comparison. I think that especially now with social media, we are surrounded by it, and it's this constant comparison if we're not mindful of it. I see it in the business world. I should be here, she's here, and we're looking at people's highlight reels. I don't see many people posting the worst picture out of all the pictures that they took that day on vacation.
I mean, people even delete them off of their phone. They don't even want to see somebody scrolling through and all of a sudden they're like, ooh, how did that show up? I look terrible, or I look XYZ. Yep. And we immediately delete it.
And I'm noticing my husband come up, the way that our couch sits, he can come up from behind, and I was zoomed in on my own photo, and he said, zoom out of that. You don't need to do that. You're beautiful just like that. And I was like, thank you. But we're zooming in before we put it out. No, it's like, no. So it's a little mixture of that perfection too that might be there for some people as well,
And it goes back to self-esteem versus self-compassion.
Yes.
Self-esteem is where we are constantly, if you look at somebody's body or how they're aging, if you, in your mind, feel that you have a quote unquote better, or you're aging better, your self-esteem is up here. Then you have a really bad day, or you're recovering from an illness or stress or whatever is going on in your life, and you feel like you want to put a bag over your head. And you feel awful and your self-esteem is through the floor. When we bring in self-compassion, we start to recognize that everybody has those good days, those challenging days. How do we bring in more self-compassion into that aging experience?
I think with self-acceptance, I think that together they're friends, right? Compassion and acceptance, and practicing what that looks like and what that feels like. And again, so many years worth of where anybody is on that spectrum of practicing awareness of it and then practicing it. could be anywhere, right? But just putting the two together, that's an interesting combination. How does it feel?
The awareness, noticing what's serving you and what's not serving you.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I had to ask you, what is healthy aging?
Healthy aging is what you define it to be. If you define it to be that you are more relaxed and not out there on your roller skates doing that, or go be on your roller skates and do that. I think we get to define, and a lot of times we give up that agency because we're outwardly looking at what is everybody else doing. I need to do that too, and it's nice for ideas. But when you are just doing and taking in the beliefs or the actions of what everybody else is doing and calling this your ideal of aging, I think that that's where we get into trouble.
It's interesting because I work with my clients. Their first contact that we typically have is health and wellness vision planning. Mm-hmm. And I have several clients that are older, and their hopes and dreams aren't much different than what at 55 or somewhere in that 50-60 range, our hopes and dreams. I'm working with a woman who's going to be 75. She wants to be active. She wants to feel good in her body. She wants to be able to be social. All the things that we typically think about, those don't shift as we get older. Mm-hmm. How do we keep those hopes and dreams alive and current and fresh, and to be able to meet whatever stage that we're in?
I think it's important to start it early on. And it's funny, there's only a couple of things that I'll admit out loud that I listen to my mom about, if my mom is listening. She knows, but it's starting early, and it's funny because she'll say to me constantly, you want to get out there. That's one thing she said about being active or working out. Start now. I didn't do it. It wasn't a habit, and it's still not a habit for me. It's such a struggle. And as we get older, of course, our bodies, our metabolisms, all of these things slow down. But if we don't have the habit ingrained within us, if we don't have the connection and the excitement or the desire even developed within us, that's where I started with the roller skating, because I've tried all these different types of activities and I don't like them. And when I'm 70, I'm probably not going to say, why don't I start exploring this now if I hadn't already started at some point?
You also had the intrinsic motivation to start roller skating because you have a granddaughter who is little, and the highlight of your life, and you will do anything to create that connection.
Yes, exactly. So it is making these connections early on. It's getting curious, and I think, again, going back to the habit space of things, trying things, being curious, open, and trying them early. That way, I'm saying it now to my 30-year-old children, do it now, because you will always be able to pick it back up. I hadn't roller skated since I was 13. And I picked it back up at 49.
The proverbial, you can always relearn to ride a bike, or you never forget how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
As I shared at the top of the show, there's been a lot of conversation over aging the past couple of months over the Sports Illustrated cover that featured Martha Stewart. Whether you love the spread or not, it has sparked controversy over beauty standards for older people. My reaction was that it set the bar for unrealistic beauty and brought me back to being a teenager looking at a Cosmo magazine of the girl or woman I could never be. On the flip side, I also saw a woman who is 81, appearing to feel strong and empowered. I recognize that these two views are polar opposites. Tell me how the cover made you feel.
Oh, girl, do we have enough showtime? I was excited for her as an individual. Martha, as an individual, you do you. If this makes you feel strong and feels really good within your body, go do the thing. I think that the way that it was angled, that's more what was upsetting to me. The fact that it was the topic of conversation and the only conversation was had is she looks good for her age. Oh, look at her doing this. And it was all based on her body. What about everything else that she had accomplished? So first and foremost, I noticed it's all the topic of now this bar, here it is, 81, I've got to be sitting by a pool. And to me, that just looks like another fancy hamster wheel that you're expecting me to get on. Because I've been on your hamster wheel since I was 14, looking at all of those airbrushed photos. So for me, this impact of where is this messaging coming from? It's coming from Sports Illustrated. It is not my magazine, it's my husband's magazine. 72% of their target market is men first. And then the demographic that is watching it, their first target market is 25 to 33-year-old men. Are they asking for the first 81-year-old fitness or supermodel or a swimsuit model? That's the word. No, they're not. You're trying to swerve into my lane. And this is not what I want to see at this point. I'm happy for her. I do not want to take away her accomplishment and what it took to get there. So there's so many feelings that I have about it, but I think that if this is the standard that we're at, for me, it is no thank you. That's where I'm at.
It's a hard conversation. Yeah. And I work with women all day long on bodies. Mm-hmm. And I've done a lot of work in my own head on what that looks like. Yeah. And as much work as I've done, it still triggered something in me that was just, like another thing that I can't reach. Yeah. I look at my mom, who is going to be 85, and she is the image of healthy aging. Mm-hmm. She is vibrant. She is connected. They have a social life. They travel. They have a personal trainer. They have the privilege to have a personal trainer once a week or every couple of weeks, whatever it is. But they are focused on their mental, emotional, and physical health. And if I saw her on the front of Sports Illustrated of what just unadorned looks like, mm-hmm. it would have been a very different reaction. So it's perplexing. And, I don't know that neither one of us have an answer on what that looks like. It's about opening up the conversation, understanding when you do look at that image, taking the time to reflect what your own individual thoughts are and unpacking where it comes from, what does it trigger, and how do you get out of that uncomfortableness if that is triggering something that is negative to your emotional or mental health.
I love that idea. And I think I purposefully stayed out of the foray and it was probably a good week of it being, the topic online. And just the responsibility of, I don't need to jump in and give my opinion of this woman's body just because everybody else is, and it also did open, and I love your point here of the triggering within me and then exploring that and what does it feel like within, and then kind of working through those pieces. What does it mean to me? That's my work. So that's what I think that we can do. We can't change. And we should not be telling what somebody else should or shouldn't be doing with their body. And it's not for us to put our opinions out there.
It's not for us to ever put our opinions out there on somebody else's body. And how do we protect the general aging public from feeling inadequate and less than in all of our imperfectly perfect bodies?
Yeah. How is that a question? Are you asking me that?
Yeah.
How do we do that? Is again, I think going back to the self-compassion, it is our own practices, internal practices. Always, always, always coming back to what's going on inside. That's what we can control. So working on that compassion, working on that acceptance. And if there is something that you don't like and you are triggered by that, then what can you do differently about it for yourself? How can you empower yourself to make the changes that you need to make within your body, in your life, by being triggered on what's going on outwardly? So I see them as signposts. It is giving you some feedback. What do you want to do with that feedback? That's the way I see it.
It's interesting because usually when, and I saw the issue yesterday when I was food shopping, and typically I am the annoying person who will just flip the covers over so that I don't have to see them because I know they annoy me. Yeah. And I know that they trigger things in my clients. So it's my own little self plan of protecting society by flipping those covers over. And I was intrigued because I knew that we were going to have this conversation. And on the flip side, I was pleasantly surprised to see that they are becoming slightly more inclusive of imperfectly perfect bodies. And I think that as a society, we have a long way to go. And there's, it's all about money and who is selling what. and it's hard. How, what about the effects of airbrushing and photoshopping, and how do these shape our beliefs and impacts on our emotional and our mental health?
They have tremendous impact. And I think like when we had our own private conversation, it had occurred to me, again, I was more upset about the messaging and where it's coming from. And this particular publication, it started from when I was a kid, 13, 14, 15. We had no idea, our generation had no idea that airbrushing was happening. We didn't know that. And we saw these, we took them in, we consumed these images, compared ourselves. There's our benchmark. And then now we knew about it. And then we go into photoshopping because now we're online. And it just keeps clicking up. And now we're fully aware of it. But the damage is done. I still look at my own body and I don't think I should have any crepey skin. I don't think I should have any dimples. And I'm like, hello, I have no collagen and my estrogen has left the building. Like literally, I should be looking like this, but my mind from all that time. So as we start to look at people who are now 81, and obviously some of whatever was done to these pictures, I have no idea, right. But this isn't the norm. And then, of course, that I'm human, that comparison, and it's like, oh no. So this education of my own beautiful, divine human body, right? Okay, my collagen isn't here as much as it once was, or my estrogen, knowing and starting to say, okay, relaxing into, we're here. But I look at my granddaughter who's 7. She's a few years away from the awareness of her own body, its development, and onward goes the cycle of diet culture. It starts as early as 7, 8, 9, 10 now.
Oh yeah, the statistics are horrifying of 6-year-old little girls. I believe there was a study that I had read from the Huffington Post a while back that 50% of 6-year-old little girls have a fear of being fat. That doesn't just happen.
No.
Where are those conversations coming from? Where are those images coming from? How do we continue to work on accepting the parts of our bodies that are they're just natural? But we look at what society puts out there for us to consume. And when we go home and we look in the mirror, we don't look like that. And we have these mental gymnastics of feeling that we are not good enough in our imperfectly perfect bodies.
It's that, and I think it's intentionality in healing. This is incentive for me to heal these parts so that I don't hand them, whether consciously or subconsciously, and I look at my own daughter who's 20 now. What were the things that from me had come out consciously and subconsciously? And now, again, looking at generations. So starting to begin to heal within your own self. And now we do have the ability to look at these things.
What often happens, though, when we see these images, our first reaction is, I need to restrict, I need to deprive, I need to get on this workout plan. And I love that we're talking about the mental and emotional health on how to be able to heal those thoughts and focus on what our bodies can do and what's important to us and understanding our values and our strengths, and that we are more than just, the physical essence of what our bodies appear to be.
And the funny part, I think, of the conversation too that is not talked about is how much it does impact the work that we do in the world, our businesses, when it does bleed all the way into that with the enoughness, with the value. And it's that subconsciousness and working through all of those pieces, especially if you have an online business and becoming visible and stepping out, even if it's networking. And again, it's that visibility, that being seen, and where are we in all of this. And a lot of times we don't take that into consideration when we're looking at building a business. We're like, oh, I've got to learn sales. I've got to learn marketing. There's this whole part of you that is still here, and that needs to be healed. And that works in and through your business as you step forward as well. And we forget about that,
It's a full package, and it goes back to the essence of the show is that there's so many different parts of our health and wellness, and everything is interconnected. And that when you are feeling super engaged and empowered by one part, that has that positive ripple effect. And if you are experiencing, that low self-esteem on how you're showing up, it again has that ripple effect, but unfortunately on the negative side.
Yeah.
As our bodies age, how do we remain comfortable and confident among those around us who are often younger, stronger, fitter, and quicker? Do you have a magic ball?
It's the remembering, I think. It's the remembering. And I, for myself, lean into appreciation. There are some parts that I see that are so wonderful about that age, that younger age. And I'm like, oh man, I miss that. And then there are other times where, like right now, working on this, really being comfortable with this part of my life where I am at a much slower pace. As I look at, again, I'm going back to my older children in their 30s, chasing kids around, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to do any of that. How wonderful, So yeah, it's appreciation, I think, and appreciation for your former self, and also appreciation for where you are now and what it is that you decide to do with yourself now. There are times where I look and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. It was my daughter-in-law who got the sassy roller skates with cheetah laces. And I was like, I need this. That's what started it. So thank you for that inspiration. I love that. And this has added so much to my life because I looked at it and I said, ooh, I'm open to trying it again. And that openness and curiosity is always so much better than, I can't do that at this age. What am I thinking?
So it's acceptance.
Hugely, yes.
What are the cultural norms and standards that you've experienced and have seen other women struggle with?
Can you repeat that again?
Yes. What are the cultural norms and standards that you've experienced and have seen other women struggle with?
Bathing suits. Bathing suits, shorts. Showing your stomach to being out and letting your stomach and letting the sun touch your stomach. Like these things are things that we're struggling with, right? Personally, I have struggled with these things. That skirt, should you be wearing that? Is it too short? Again, how do I get dressed or how do I even shop? I shouldn't be in Forever 21 because I'm not. And there is no Forever 50. Like, where am I supposed to go? And, I am a Nana, but I don't want to look like a Nana, So
what does it, so there's an interesting question. Yeah. Nana had that, I felt that negative connotation that a Nana was an older woman who is not present in current. Where did that just come from?
Oh, I don't know. We'll unpack that later. Not on film. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it is. It's that word. It's the Nana. And I'm fun time Nana. That's who I am. I come in that way. But it is something that I've heard. And that's the Nana in you, because I do travel with a sweater and now readers wherever I go. But again, it's that stereotype, right?
It's funny. I have a friend of mine who her husband has children, so they're not her children, but she's the grandmother, and she is a woman who is always dressed and put together, anything is never untucked or undone. And she refers to herself as glammy versus Grammy because she wants the world to know that she is a young grandmother. And it's all about our perspective and how we can portray it and how we want to age gracefully to empower ourselves, whatever stage that we are at. Yeah. What shifts do you feel are needed in this conversation to defy aging?
The shifts that are needed are patience and an openness to your own acceptance and deciding, you get to decide what that narrative in your own head is. And being okay with that, being okay. If you choose to be okay with where you're at right now, then be okay with where you're at right now. If you want more, strive for more. Do that. And again, it does come down to that acceptance. And it sounds so easy for us to talk about. It is, and I do want to say that right here, right now. Like, we are oversimplifying this by going, just have some compassion and some acceptance for yourself. Yeah, of course. We could say that to every single human alive, right? But it is a deliberate practice, and it is a deliberate, like, taking the wheel and re-pulling it. It's correct, self-correct, right?
And that's something that I work with my clients all the time, where we talk about, well, it all sounds so simply, or I know the things. It doesn't mean that that it's easy, and there are steps to be able to work through and unpack and have these conversations. And the more that we have these conversations, the more acceptance we will all start to continue to have. Before you tell us about this week's practice, are there any other words of wisdom that you would like to share and to accept our aging bodies?
I think it's a matter of, sometimes it's just quite simply acknowledging things, acknowledging where you're at, assessing where you're at, and attending to it. And that breaks it down into the smaller steps needed to even step into something that could be a really scary and hard and difficult, depressing conversation. It's hard facing those edges. And again, I know for myself at 50, the whole beginning of this One Life podcast is, again, I'm at an age where I've lived this much. Maybe I got this much if I'm lucky, right?
Oh, come on, make that wider.
All right, I'm over here, right? But I'm like, you know what? Like, no day is promised here. So it's really about just deciding where it is that you want to be with it, and then working into, all right, if I need to make changes, then make them in the small incremental steps.
It's learning to write your own story, breaking down those pieces, getting out of the overwhelm, feel the angst, and try to take that one small step to try to figure out how to start to lessen that stress, that anxiety, to meet that change, that goal that you want to meet. So tell us what this week's practice is.
This week's practice is, again, it's journaling. For me, it is about the inner work and taking out those pieces. With the journal work, I say it's a daily practice, quite simply because checking in and deciding how you want to feel at the top of the day, and then moving from there and breaking it down. And again, we have lists no matter what age we're at, right? We all have those lists, but how do you want to feel? And focusing on that today, and then doing more of that throughout your day so that it's already happening for you. Not, I will get there, I will feel better at some point. It is doing the practices now, small, simple practices.
So that journal topic is, how do I want to feel today?
How do I want to feel today? Yes.
All right. Well, thank you as always. I loved our conversation. And today we learned about ageism, where our thoughts come from, and how offering self-compassion is a powerful skill to help create acceptance in all of our aging bodies. If you're looking to continue the conversation, please join me on my monthly office hours and my monthly conversations where we dive deeper into the topics that we are talking about here. I also would love to encourage you to send me an email with your questions, what topics you would like to see on future episodes, and I hope to have you come back and see our next episode of Getting Healthy Without Rules.